Hi everybody, my name is Ginell Cooper and I am here today with the market bag. However, I'm doing it a little bit differently, of course. I created a Facebook group at the beginning of the pandemic because I wanted to teach people how to crochet because I felt like it was a good outlet while things were crazy. And I did not realize we would still be here 5-6 months later. So now we're on our 5th project, which is fantastic. I actually am enjoying the growth of that group and how much fun we're having together. So what I did was I threw up a bunch of choices for different styles of market bags and things that I thought people might like. And then I asked them to choose what they like the best. One in particular, which was kind of my favorite, so I may be a little bit biased, but one in particular people seem to be leaning towards, but I think they seem to be a little afraid of how hard it might be. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to take that pattern and change it and make it maybe a little easier for everyone. The people in my Facebook group who have never done a granny square before probably should benefit from doing a plain old granny square instead of a fancy one. So we are going to do on this market bag just a little bit different, and we're going to add some bright colors, and it's going to look like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a main color, and these are going to be plain granny squares. And then we're going to have 4 squares that are going to be decorative squares. I chose flowers because they're round and they're easy to make granny squares out of, and you don't have to like turn them or anything. But literally, if you go on the internet and you look up granny squares, there are tons of them. So you can choose for your 4 decorative squares anything you want. In fact, when we do our plain squares, there's gonna be 9 of those, 4 decorative and 9 plain squares, you can actually choose to make those super colorful too if you like. And what I like about these granny squares is it's a market bag. It still has the holes, but not the huge holes that were in some of the other market bags, which will be nice if you have smaller things in the bag. In making a market bag, you want something that doesn't stretch too much. So I'm doing cotton yarn on these. Cotton doesn't have a whole lot of give to it. It has some give, but not a whole lot of give to it. I'm doing 2 different choices for you. Again, you can do anything you want, but I was choosing the colors for my market bag, which is going to be these colors. And my daughter was with me at the time, so she chose these colors. And she's like, could you make me one too? And I'm like, yeah. So I thought that would be fun because then I could give you guys some choices and show you how easy it is to kind of just change it up. The cottons that I chose, none of them really match because I went off of color instead of like style or name brand. So you'll see that some of them are Pima cotton, some of them are decorative home, I think, and some of them are good old faithful sugar and cream. So as long as they're all about the same size, you're not getting like a super thin cotton, then it'll all work just fine. I actually do like 3 or 4 different patterns. I kind of like am Frankensteining them together to make this bag. So I'm gonna link all of the different patterns in the description so that you can follow along for the sunflower pattern, the daisy pattern, the granny square pattern, and then the actual purse pattern. Even though we're not gonna do the square that she did, I am actually going to copy her as far as how she does her strap. So we're gonna jump around a bit. If you stay with me, hopefully it's all gonna come together and be super cute. This one, you're gonna learn how to do a magic circle, which I'm telling you, changed my life. So we're gonna start off with this one. I'm gonna teach you this one first. Then I'm gonna teach you this one. Then I'm gonna teach you this one, and just know that all of the plain squares for this one are the exact same as the gray plain square. And then we'll sew it all together. There are a lot of different choices for joining the squares. To be honest, I haven't decided. We'll figure out when we get there. Anyway, let's get started. Okay guys, we're gonna start with the plain granny squares, and here's what I think it's gonna take. You're gonna need your cotton yarn, your H hook, which is a 5mm, a needle for sewing in your ends and sewing the pieces together, and scissors, and your yarn, right? The yarn you're gonna need is gonna take it's gonna be less than 600 yards, but your flower doesn't have to be a sunflower. It doesn't even have to be a flower, to be honest, but you could make it a dahlia. It could be bright pink. It could be anything you want it to be. So you could totally go off of your stash and just use little bits and pieces. This is a great little stash buster part right here. But for the main part, I went ahead and bought 600 yards, knowing for sure that I wouldn't use 600 yards. But I didn't know how much I would use though, so I just wanted to be safe. So round one, they say chain 3, and then you're gonna do 2 double crochets into the first chain. We're gonna do something different. If you're part of my original crochet group, you probably have never done this before, but it's really fun. I love it. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna pretend like you're gonna do a slip stitch like we normally do, but instead of doing the slip stitch, you're gonna pull up this yarn, leave the circle, don't pull it tight, and then you're going to chain 1, that kind of holds it in place, chain 2, because that chain 2 is gonna count as one of your double crochets, and then you're gonna double crochet, and we're just going to go around this string, right? So you're just going to double crochet around that string. So 1, 2, double crochet, if you don't remember, is wrap once, go under, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the other 2, that's a double crochet. So with the chain 2 and the 2 double crochets, that's 1 cluster. We are going to do 4 clusters with 1 chain in between each one. So chain 1 and then do another cluster. That's your first cluster, that's your second cluster, chain 1, so that you have a little space in between them, do your third cluster. 3 double crochets to a cluster, 4 clusters of each, and then you have a chain in between each one. We want to chain 1 here so that there's a chain between this and the other one. And here's where the magic comes in. You would have had to do all of that in the first chain, that's a lot of stitches to try and cram into the first chain if you did it the way they told you to, and the traditional way to do it, to be honest. But this is magic because watch what happens. You just pull that string and it all just comes together like that. And then you just join it with a slip stitch. And then what you have is a cluster with a space, cluster, space, cluster, space, cluster, space, just like that. And that is the very beginning of your granny square. Now, this is fun. You'll see how this all comes together. The next one we're gonna do is you're gonna do these corners right here. So on the long sides, there's no chain in between. On the corners, there's a chain in the middle. Okay, so keep that in mind as we do this. So we're gonna chain up 2, and that's going to count as your first double crochet. Now this is going to look crazy. You have to trust me on this. It will all come together. You are going to jump clear over this, and you're going to do 3 double crochets right there, okay, inside this chain. You're not going to go in the stitch. You're going to go in the hole made by the chain. So wrap once, go in, yarn over, pull it up, yarn over again, go through 2, go through 2, okay? I know it looks funny. This is going to be the final double crochet on the last cluster. It'll all come together, I promise. So do it again. You're gonna do a cluster of 3. Okay, so that's your first cluster. This is going to be our first corner. This is how we're going to take this circle and make it into a square. So this is our first corner. In order to do that, we're going to do chain 1, and then you're going to do a cluster of 3 more in the same hole. Okay, see, there's your first corner. Isn't that cool? So now this is not a corner. The corner is going to be coming out of here. So between here and here, we're not going to chain. We're just going to jump over. So wrap it once, go into this hole. Just remember the only places that you chain in between are in the corners. Chain 1 because it's the corner, and then do 3 more in the same space. There you go. Now you have 2 corners. So now we're going to jump over and we're going to make 2 more corners. I'll meet you at the end of that. Okay, so here we are in the final corner. I've done my first cluster. I'm going to do chain 1 because we're in the corner, and then we're going to do 2 double crochets, but there's already 1 here. So you're only going to do 2. 1, 2, and then see where these two connect right here? That's where you're going to go in. You're going to pull it through and you're going to join them together with a slip stitch. And I always feel like that is just the most satisfying thing, is getting that square just perfect. So there you go. That's your first row. Then we're going to chain up 1 or chain up 2. This time, because we are not starting at the end, you could technically, if you wanted to, you could jump over here. But since we're here in the middle and it's not awkward, we're just going to go ahead and do all 3 of ours right here. So we've already done that. Chain 2 counts as the first double crochet. And this is now a middle cluster. So we're going to do our corners right here. This is a middle cluster. So there's no chain 1 on either side of this. It's just going to jump right over here and start working on the corners. And as it gets bigger, it's going to expand out and there will be more center clusters, or side clusters, I guess. Okay, see how that's happening? So there's the center cluster, there's the corner. We're going to do another center cluster here and another corner over here. We're going to go all the way around. I'll meet you at the end. Okay, here we are. We've gone all the way around. All we have to do now is come up to the top of this double crochet right here, that stitch that connects those two together, go underneath those two, and you're going to pull through and slip stitch to connect them together. And look at that perfect square. Isn't that nice? We're going to continue basically doing that until we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. So right now we have 1, 2, 3 rows. We're going to do 2 more, and by the time we get to that point, we will have 3 side ones and then the 2 corner ones, and that'll make up the side of that, and then you'll be done with this. Well, not quite. I'm going to do another round and I'll tell you why. Again, going back, just because you could do all 3 in this hole if you wanted to, but just because it feels like it's on the left side of the stitch instead of towards the right side, I jump over. It is completely personal preference. You can do however you want. It all works out to be the same anyway, so whatever you are most comfortable with, you can do. And there you have it, right? But notice I added to this one, and the reason I added to it was because of this. This was what my original square. And I just chose not to do this one because it just wasn't quite the look I was going for. It looked more like a sunburst, which you could totally do. Sunbursts are nice. And then I tried this one and I was like, still not quite what I'm going for, but I had a problem. These are the same number of stitches, right? So you have 5 clusters of 3 across the top, just like this, but it's smaller. So I decided to go around the outside on the one that I actually did end up doing. I went around the outside to make it bigger so that it matched, right? But then I wanted, if that's going to have a border, then I want that to have a border, or this one and that one, right? So that they match. So it's hard, you kind of go back and forth and you're like, well, so what I ended up doing was I ended up doing a single crochet border on this one and a half double crochet border on this one. And they actually end up being pretty darn close to each other, as you can see. Don't worry about these guys. They will fulfill their destiny. I'm going to make them into kitchen cloths. The one thing I'm going to do differently, technically you should, if you're going into the top of each of these, you should go into this stitch right here, do your crochet, chain 1 over here. But I like that, I want this hole right here to be continuous all the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and, even though I went into the top of these stitches, when it comes to the corners, I'm gonna go into the hole instead of the stitch. So we're gonna do single crochet, chain for the corner, just so it has a nice crisp corner, single crochet. Don't worry, it'll all work out fine when we do the actual, when we join them together, because I'll make it work. Again, crochet is easy that way. Perfect enough for me. So there you go. There's your first granny square. I'm going to go ahead and chain to lock it in. And then we're going to sew in our ends, or weave in our ends. One thing I do want to say, when you do this. So when we do the magic circle on these, we're gonna pull that magic circle really tight just because I didn't want a hole in the middle of my flower. And that might be why it's a little bit shorter going this way. This one though, I want that hole to kind of match all of these ones so it looks sort of uniform. I didn't want it to be like a tight little clover in the middle there. So I am gonna keep that hole in there, and I'm gonna weave in my ends so that it works that way. There you go. First granny square done. Aren't they so cute? I just love them. You can make an entire blanket out of these. I mean, it doesn't even have to be like anything wild and crazy. Or you could do one color here, one color here, one color here. I mean, it's so fun. You could really just make it crazy or make it super simple either way. Or just do a color here and a color here and then leave the rest plain. There's so many ways you can make that customizable to match your personality. So basically what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna do 9 squares in the plain granny square. We're gonna go ahead and start on this one. Like you're doing your slip stitch or your slip knot, but you're not gonna do the slip knot. You're gonna stop right here and you're gonna chain. That kind of holds it, right? So no matter what you do in here, you're always gonna chain 1. And then you're gonna chain a second time, and that's gonna count as the first of our 16 double crochets. So that's the first one. Then we're gonna add 15 more double crochets around the outside of this ring. Okay, so here you go. You're at the magic part. However, double check and make sure you have 16 double crochets on there, including the chain 2. If you don't, your flower's gonna be lopsided. So just make sure you got 16. Here we go, here's the magic part. You're gonna pull this string, and because there's so many stitches on there, it's harder to get that center closed, but you can do it. Just don't pull too tight because you don't wanna like break the string, right? So you got that, and then we're just gonna go to the top of this right here, the top of the double crochet or the chain 2, and then slip stitch to join it. And there you have your perfect little circle. And if you've seen my other videos, you've seen that a lot of times I will change color right before I go to the next row. Here, I will demonstrate. Right before I go to the next row, I would change color right here. So normally I would grab my yellow and I would pull it through, and that would be, I would finish the stitch with the yellow, right? And then we could go right into the next row. However, when it comes to these cute little flowers, when you do that, it always ends up having like this weird random stitch back here that doesn't look very good. So I fought against it for the longest time when I was doing things in the round, but it always tells you to go ahead and finish off this round and weave in your ends. And I know that sounds like extra work, and it is extra work, but it makes it look so much cleaner and crisper. It's worth it. To me anyway, it's worth it. If you want to go on to the next row, you'll see the difference. There's like this funky little line right there, and it's just kind of annoying. So we're gonna go ahead and weave in our ends before we start the next row. Row 2 is going to be yellow, sunflower yellow. Okay, so you can start anywhere, doesn't really matter where you start. I don't like to start right where I left off because then the knots are all in the same place and they kind of like pile up on each other. So I start in an opposite area. And then all you're gonna do on this one is you're gonna chain 1, and we're gonna make a puff stitch all the way around. You're gonna wrap 1, go back into the same hole, yarn over, pull up. The deal with the puff stitch is you want it to kind of pull up sort of high because you want this to be nice and long. Sorry, there's a little extra piece there. And then wrap again, go back into the same hole, pull up. We're gonna do that 3 times. So when you're ready to pull through, you're gonna have 7 yarns on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you're gonna yarn over and pull through. It's kind of an elongated puff stitch because there's other ways to do them. And then you're gonna chain 1, and that just locks that so that it doesn't move. And then you're gonna chain 1 again, and that's the space in between the 2 puff stitches. So let's do it again. Wrap one like you're doing a double crochet, but you're not going to do a double crochet. Pull it up, pull up high, wrap it, pull up, that's 2, wrap it, yarn over and pull up, that's 3, yarn over, pull through all 7 loops, and then chain it to hold it, chain for the space. And you're gonna go all the way around, and you're gonna have 16 of those. I'll meet you at the end. Okay, here I am on the last one. I'm gonna wrap it, go in, pull up, pull up. Pull through, chain 1, there's your space chain, and then you're going to go to the top of this one. See that chain that connects them all together? That's the one you're going to go to. Pull through there, and that one, and that joins it. That's a slip stitch. Just like that. And then chain 1, cut it, weave in your ends. So we're going to chain up 2, and our goal here is that we're going to make a cluster of 4 instead of 3 like we did here. But instead of it being nice and like triangular looking like that, it's going to come together at the top like a flower petal. So what we're going to do is what's called a double crochet together. And a lot of times people, I mean, this is what you use to decrease your stitches when you're doing something in the round or anywhere. And that's normally what you would do is you would go in here, you would act like you're going to do a double crochet, right? If you're trying to decrease a stitch, you would just do the first half of the double crochet, pull through those 2, leave it on there, grab the next stitch and do it again, and then you pull it all together, and that's how you do a decrease. But we're not going to, we're going to do this funny thing where we do an increase and then decrease it at the top. So, and that's what's going to make our petal. So you're going to act like you're doing double crochet, you're going to wrap once, go in, yarn over, pull it up, but you're going to go through 2, leave both of those hoops on the hook, and then wrap it, go back in, bring it up, go through 2. So right now we have 3 partials of double crochets, and we want 4. So wrap it again, go through. This is all in the same space. Okay, so now this is 4 double crochets, but we've only done half of them. Now we're going to finish it off by yarning over and pull through all 4. So we made it wider and then we made it skinnier, and that's what's going to create that petal up there. So same thing as before, you're going to chain 1. Now in the pattern, the way they have it written is they want you to just chain 1 and go straight into the next one. But I've found that it made it kind of like curl up like this. So I decided to modify it a little bit just for my use, and I chained 1 to finish it and then 1 for the space in between. So then go ahead and do that again all the way around in each of those 16 spaces. So half of a double crochet 4 times. You're just building up these loops on your hook. And then when you have 5 yarns on there, so the original chain plus the 4 halves of double crochets, then you're going to wrap it and go through all 4, just like that. So it makes a little petal. Chain 1 to end it, or to lock it, I guess, and then chain 1 for the space, and then go all the way around, and I'll meet you at the other side. Okay, we've come to the end of this row. Again, go to the very top where that chain pulled everything together. Go in there, yarn over, pull through both of those for a slip stitch, and then chain 1 to lock it, and then cut your yarn. That's so cute. And then weave in your ends. We're going to take a circle and we're going to change it into a square. And for that, I need my denim. I love this color. Okay, same as before, just grab anywhere. Now, one thing I can tell you, because we're about to do this part up here, I'm going to start it here. and we're going to go across 3, and then we're going to make our corner, and then we're going to go across 3. However, if you are doing something that is not round, this would probably be a good spot to start your corner right here. In fact, you know what? I'm going to start the corner just so that you can do that in case you have something that you're working with that isn't round. This is where your corner is going to start. And this is if you are at the level where you have 16 spaces across the top. So on this one, for instance, when I finish the flower on this one, I'm only at 12 spaces. So I do another row, and then this is the one that builds it to 16. This one builds it out further. So we're gonna go up 2, and we're gonna go ahead, oh, actually on this one, because I'm gonna start it in the corner, we're gonna go up 3. So what's gonna make it square is this corner is going to have a treble crochet, or I call it a triple crochet. It's basically just like a double crochet, except you're going to wrap it twice instead of once. Go in the hole, pull up your loop, and you're going to go through 2, yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, and go through 2. So just like the double crochet, it's like you go through 2 twice. This one you're going to go through 2 3 times to make it a triple. And we're going to do it again. And the 3rd time. Okay, so that's going to be way longer than the rest of them, but that's how it's going to go from being, if you just did the double crochets all the way around, it would just continue to be a circle. Doing the treble crochets on the corner is what's going to make it a square. So now you're going to, the pattern calls to chain 2. To be honest, I don't know why, but the rule follower in me says, I can't think of why not, because we're still just going to go in the chain right there, just as if it was a chain 1. So I just followed her pattern just because, I don't know, because I'm respecting her pattern, I guess. I don't know, but you could just chain 1 there. I don't think it makes a difference. I kind of like the bigger hole that it leaves, so I'm just going to leave it the way it is. And once you decide what you're going to do there, just do it the same on all 4 of your squares so that they all look the same. Everything else is chain 1 in the corner, so I don't know why this one's chain 2. Okay, so there is your first corner, or the top of your diamond. So from the next 3, we're going to do just regular clusters of 3 double crochets, and don't chain in between on the sides. Only do the chains on the corners. Okay, so there's the corner and the 3 across the middle. Now we're going to do a corner right here. Look at how pretty. Now we just need to connect it right here. So you're just going to join it with a slip stitch. Just like that. Chain. And cut it. Now, you may be wondering, you may be asking yourself, why did she choose to do the outside in gray? In sewing these together, I didn't want it to be obvious. And I hadn't decided yet. There were 2 different ways I was going to join this. I was either going to do a whip stitch, and if I do a whip stitch through both of these, I didn't want the gray to show over on the blue. The other way I was going to do was through these right here. You go through there on both sides. That would have been less noticeable either way. I just wasn't sure. So I wanted this border to match the plain square. This automatically does anyway, because it actually, this line did, and then I ended up building it up just so that it continuity with all the other ones. So anyway, that's why I chose to do gray on the outside. You can choose to do whatever you want that makes you feel good on the outside. You do, on these ones though, you do want to go through this because you want it to look just like we did on this one. So you're going to, instead of going through the hole, you're going to go through the actual stitch. The only difference is on the corners. I still go through the hole on the corners. Okay guys, so starting on the daisy square, just like we started with this one, the center is going to be the same, except instead of doing 16 double crochets around, we're only going to do 12. And it's going to make for a smaller flower. So I already did my 12 on my magic ring. And now we're just going to pull that little magic ring tight. Just like that. And then we're going to join it at the top of that double crochet, or the top of the chain 2, with a slip stitch. Just like we did before, just a slightly smaller circle. Okay, row number 2 on this is exactly like the sunflower. I'm going to do it with the white for the daisy. It is exactly like the sunflower, except because now you only have 12 spaces, you're going to have only 12 little white petals on there. But it's the exact same puff stitch. Okay, so here we are at the end. Just like before, we're going to go right into the top of this petal, which is that slip stitch that pulled that all together, or that chain that pulled it all together. And we're going to just chain into there, just like that. And that is our first layer. Actually, it's all of our daisy, because now we're going to go into the background color. Okay, guys, so on this one, on this level, instead of doing, so in the sunflower, we did another row of petals, but on the daisy, we don't. The daisy, we go right into the granny square part of it. So we're just going to go ahead, and it's almost like we're doing the last row of the sunflower, but we're going to do it a little early. So there's going to be actually 2 rows of granny square-ing, if that's what you want to call it, the stitches that make up the granny square. So what you're going to do first is just go ahead and go into this little space right here, and you're going to go up 2, and then we're going to do 2 double crochets so we can make our little cluster of 3. And if you are doing, again, if you're doing something that isn't round, you can make this your corner right here and be like, this is the top of your piece, and then you want the corner to start right there, so it's on a diagonal. I am going to show you there, here, I'll post it right here, but there's actually a picture of different layouts for a bag similar to this that I found on Pinterest. And if you want to make a bag where your squares are straight across instead of diagonal, you definitely can. So if you are looking at something that, you know, maybe has like a dinosaur or something on it that would make it hard to do a granny square, I mean, you still can, but if you have instructions to follow, it's easier than trying to figure it out on your own. And if that's the case, maybe you might want to do a bag that has the straight up and down squares instead of the diagonal or the turned ones. Okay, so now I'm going to do my corner. So I just did these 2. Now I'm going to do my corner, and that's when we're going to do the triple crochets, and that's how we're going to take it from a circle to a square. What is that, the 3rd level, 3rd row, square complete. We're going to go ahead and join it right here at the top of the chain 2 with a slip stitch. And then chain 1. Okay, time to do the last, well, it's not the second to the last row, but it's nothing but green from here on out. So I'm going to start it right here. So we're going to chain up 2. And then just do our clusters just like we did on the last one, only this time you don't have to do the trebles in the corner because you already changed it to a square. So now that it's a square, you don't have to do that. Just do your 2 sets of doubles in the corner. But you still want to do your chain in between, just on the corner ones. Okay, so here we are at the end of the green on this round, and we're going to go ahead and slip this together. This is the top of the 2 chains up right there. And slip stitch that together for a perfect little square. And now we don't have to change color because I just did the single crochet around the outside. I didn't do the half double on this one because I didn't feel like I needed to bulk up that ridge like I did with this one, because this one, it just looked too sparse when I did a single crochet around the outside and there was a lot of blue showing, so I wanted that line to be a little thicker. But this one you don't need to because we're working on green, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the single crochet all the way around, and then I just remember in the corners you just do 1 single crochet, 1 chain, and then another one, just to make this so the corners are still pointy, and just can do that all the way around, and then you're done with this square. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish the square, and just like we did with the other one, and then I will meet you, and the next thing we're going to do is da-da-da, we're gonna actually try to lay it out and start sewing our squares together. So that should be fun. The squares I've been working on without you on my own, so I was plenty practiced on that. This one we're gonna be kind of winging it, as if you've been watching my videos, you know I wing things often. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it'll go swimmingly. Okay guys, check it out. Here is the layout. I can't even fit it all on my camera, so I have to kind of sit here and hold it for a second. But this is so exciting. Okay, so the part for me that's going to be interesting is how we're going to go about sewing this all together. So even if you whip stitch it, I think I'm actually going to crochet it. And I've turned the right sides out, and these are supposedly the wrong sides, but honestly there are no wrong sides in this because, you know, it's double-sided. But I believe I'm going to crochet. It's going to go like this because you want to try and get as much of it in to one yarn as you can. I think it's going to take 3 for this. If you are an expert at putting these bags together and you have a really cool way of doing this, please leave it in the comments because the people need to know, because I am not as skilled probably as you are. But I think I'm going to start here and I'm going to connect this way. Nope, I take it back. I'm going to start here and I'm going to connect this way, and then I'm going to go up here, go up this way, and then back this way, back over here. So that's all one connection, right? So then I think what's going to happen, because the only things that won't be connected anymore, because what's going to happen is this is basically going to fold upward, and this is going to fold right here. So then that means that these two will be connected to each other. This will be folded in half. These two will be connected, and so forth, right? So then I think, and then this will be folded this way, and this will go this way. And that's how the bag's gonna look, right? So the center part will all be sewed together, and then I think what I'll do is I'll do another stitch that'll go from here up and then around the square, then that'll all be done, and then from here up and around that square. And that'll all be done. And then we'll start doing the border around the top and the strap. So I think that part's gonna be easy, but this part's gonna be a little complicated. Hopefully it's gonna all work out just fine. So let's get started. Grab the corner where that single or that little chain is right there, and do the same on this side. And I actually could just slip stitch all the way down, or I could single crochet all the way down. But I think in order to kind of hide the ridge a little bit, I'm gonna do the back of this stitch and the front of this stitch. So see how it's like, I mean, it's the back of both stitches, but since they're next, the ones that are closest to each other. So the loops that are closest to each other right there. I think that's how I'm gonna do it. And then what that'll do is it'll actually sink the ridge down a little bit on this side, but on the front, there won't be a ridge at all. It'll just be like it's sewn together. So let's see what that looks like. This should be fun. So we're gonna pull that through. Little slip stitch there. Chain one, pull that tight, and we will knot that or sew that in later. You're gonna grab the back of this one and the back of that one, and we're gonna slip stitch it. So wrap it, pull it, and pull it like that. So it'll slip stitch all the way down the middle. Sort of like a zipper. I think maybe that's what the zipper stitch was in the joining of the squares when we did the quarantine blanket. Hopefully I will get a rhythm and then it won't be so slow. in case you'd like to see up just a little closer here what I'm doing. I am going through, this is the V on the top of this, and then there's the V on the top of this. I'm going through the back one of this and the back one of that. So if you held them together perfectly, you would actually go through, like if you were going to do both of them, you're going to go through all of the V's, all of the stitches, but you and I are going through the back one. I guess the front one, if you look at it that way, it depends on how you're looking at it. And then you pull them together in a slip stitch like that. Just continue all the way across. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so I finished all of this part. Kind of glad you guys didn't watch me because I was climbing all over it because it's kind of in an awkward position. But I just wanted to show you when I get to the end here. So this is where we started, and I came this way, came all the way back around, and then I'm back here to where we started. And all I'm going to do is just like we did with the granny squares. I'm going to go into the top of that last join in there, and I'm just going to slip stitch it together for the same kind of join that we do on the granny squares. And then one little knot there, and then we'll weave those ends in. Okay guys, this is what the front side looks like. And you know what's funny? I actually really like it, but also I don't hate the ridges. I actually think the ridges are kind of cute. So it could be reversible if you want. You could have the ridges on the outside if you like that look. So I think it could really go either way. But so now what we're gonna do is this is gonna come up like this, just like that. And then this little guy is gonna go here, and this one is gonna go here. So what I'm gonna do, actually I'm gonna flip it inside out and do it, but I'm gonna start down here, and I'm gonna do that same stitch, join stitch, up to here, and then I'm gonna go around the outside of this square to these squares, and that should, if I do that on both sides, it should be complete, right? Hopefully. And then we will do the border up here and the strap, and it'll be done. Here is a quick tip. I noticed that I did not do a very good job on this corner. See how the other corners are nice and solid? This one has kind of a hole in it. Sometimes that happens. I notice that it's happened with me anyway, especially when I'm like doing socks. For some reason, the corners get messed up. So I'm just gonna come in here. I'm gonna add in some yarn. I'm basically weaving in the end to begin with, so I don't have to go back and weave it in later. And then I'm just gonna come through here, and I'm gonna sew it together so that it's nice and solid on that corner. So don't think you have to like undo it all. It's not necessary. Just come in here and sort of, this is sort of like the mattress stitch kind of. You're just gonna kind of grab these pieces. So this is what it looks like with the ridges on the inside. I might actually keep the ridges on the outside because I think it looks awfully cute that way, but this looks good too. Either way, whatever you like. Tell me in the comments, I guess, what you're gonna do with yours. But there is one thing that I did when I was trying to lay it out to, you know, figure out what I was gonna do next with the strap. And I laid it out like this because I was just matching these little guys up here. And I was like laying it out, and I'm like, what happened? And I literally like, I had a panic attack that I had like maybe sewn it all together wrong. So if you go to lay yours out like that and you're like, oh no, you have that moment where you think you're going to have to redo it, just know that you've just got it folded wrong. So just a little tip from me to you. Anyway, you ready for a magic trick? Ta-da! There you go. There's the daisy one. If only it were that easy in real life, right? Okay guys, we are going to start the trim and the handles on this, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it's kind of a long process. I sort of thought that it was gonna go really, really fast. And I went ahead and did the daisy one. So, and I'll show you that at the end. It turned out really super cute. But there are a couple things I learned from it. And one of them is that doing the waistcoat stitch, which is what we're gonna do on these, is cool because it makes the straps really strong, like really strong right here and then really strong up there, which you really want. But it also is really time consuming because it's not the natural way to crochet. So you can't really get a good rhythm going. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm gonna give you the steps. You're not gonna really watch me do the steps. I'm just gonna show you what to do for each thing. And then I would say snuggle up with a movie or something and just sit there. It doesn't take a lot of thought. Except maybe just counting out your chains for your handles. But, and so you can kind of mindlessly do it while you watch TV, which is my favorite way to crochet. But it does take time, so keep that in mind. But it is the last step, so I'm really excited. So let's go ahead and get working on it. So we are kind of going off of the pattern from the Wild Rose Market Bag by All About Amy. And it is, it's super cute. Obviously we did something very different. We did totally different squares, but kind of the same layout. And I wanted to use her straps specifically because she does them with this waistcoat stitch. I can't speak. Waistcoat stitch. And it's actually super sturdy, and that's what you want in your straps. And I love the way it's put into the top of the bag, so the whole bag is supported instead of just these straps that could like come off or whatever. So so I love the way she did that. So, and this is going to be linked in the description, but just keep in mind that we're going to do things a little bit differently. For instance, it says in the pattern when we get to the part where we chain to do the handle, it says to chain 85. I chained 85 for the daisy bag, and that was really long. That bag was like down to like mid-thigh for me, and I'm not a very tall person, so I cut it down to 65. So that's what we're gonna do. So the first step is that you wanna grab the right side. So this side over here, the straps are gonna go right here. Okay, so we're gonna start on this side, and we're going to single crochet all the way around. So you can start anywhere you want. I kind of like starting like right where that chain is right there because it gives it a nice like little single crochet right in that tip of that diamond. So you're gonna chain up one and then single crochet in the same space. And that'll make it easier for you to see where your row starts so that you can join into that really easy. So single crochet right here. And then all you're gonna do is you're just gonna follow all of these single crochets all the way around, and you're just gonna make a single crochet row around the entire thing. One thing I did want to tell you guys that I have learned through experimentation with the daisy bag is that when you get to this part, that you kind of want to skip this in-between business because you kind of want to cinch it in so it's a nice tight diamond right there. So do the last like obvious single crochet, which is right there. And then you've got these that are like random, you know, from us joining everything. So I would just like go right into the top of that diamond, kind of skip all that other business and just cinch it up tight so that it's a nice tight diamond right there. It'll help when you come back and do the waistcoat stitch. So kind of skip this business and go right into that single crochet right there. And then you have a nice clean edge. Okay, so this right here is where we started. There's the chain up and there's the first single crochet right there. This is the last sort of obvious single crochet. We're gonna do that one. This is like who knows what's going on right there. So we're just gonna skip that and cinch it up like really nice so that it's a nice clean finish. Just like that. See, and this is actually going to end up being like the side of the bag right here. So it'll be nice to have that be nice and clean right there. Okay, so we're gonna go into round 2, and this is where we start doing the waistcoat stitch. Look at that, I can actually pronounce it now. So you're gonna wanna chain up. So usually you would go under these two pieces of yarn, right? That's that little V that we always see at the top. And you go under those and that's your single crochet. We're gonna do a centered single crochet. So basically, instead of going into either of these, you're gonna go right in the middle of that V. And it's gonna feel so bizarre when you do it. But what it's gonna end up doing is it's gonna create this sort of stacked single crochets right on top of each other instead of offset from each other like they usually are. And it's gonna look kind of knit, but it's gonna be super thick and strong. So it's just a very different texture than what you're used to in crochet. And it takes some like work because those holes are not big. Like these, you can travel along because they're nice and big, right? But these ones, you kind of have to work into them a little bit. And that's what's gonna slow you down. So here we are, we're at the top of the diamond. See how those are kind of stacked right on top of each other? It's gonna look really cool. When you get to like your 4th row, you're gonna be like, wow, that looks really nice. Nice and clean and strong. So now we are going to chain 65 and it's gonna connect right here. We are going to count and we're gonna kind of hold it so it doesn't twist. So you don't want it to twist when you connect over here. The chances of you twisting it are pretty slim because you're basically chaining and going straight into here. So it's not like you're gonna try and connect 2 chains together like you would for like a hat or something. Okay, that is 65. I'm gonna hold it right there. I haven't twisted it or anything, and we're gonna go straight into this other side. Find the very tippy top, which is right about there. And then you're gonna go over here. So you're skipping all of this dip down here. You're gonna skip all of that. Continue with your waistcoat stitch until you get to the top of this, and then we're gonna do it again. Okay, here we go. We're gonna go into my favorite part. I'm being facetious. It's not my favorite, it's my least favorite part, but it's important and it's worth it. But look at how these are stacking up on top of each other. Doesn't that look kind of cool? And it's nice and solid. Like it doesn't stretch hardly at all. And it's definitely nice and firm. And what I love about this strap design, even though it's not my favorite thing to do, what I love about it is that it is incorporated into the structure of the bag. So it's not just like sewn on, it's actually part of the entire thing. You're going to single crochet across this chain. Sounds super easy, I know. And people do it all the time because people do it to like make blankets and stuff all the time. But for me, I have a hard time with it because it's just hard to find the hole. So what you want to do is you want your V on top and you want 1 yarn on the bottom, right? And then you still have to go in that tiny little hole. It is a pain to get in there. The first one's tough because it's pulled tight, so it kind of like gets smaller than all the other ones. They kind of loosen up as you go, or at least for me they do. You're just going to do a regular single crochet, and you're going to do that all the way across. For me, it's almost easier to grab, like to do the bottom one instead of trying to grab, you know what I mean? Like you're doing the same thing, but instead of trying to grab 2, you just grab 1 and then pull through. And this is also why if you chained and it got like twisted, you found out that it got twisted along the way, as long as you've always got 1 on the bottom and 2 on the top, then it'll work out just fine. And that is, so it's easy to fix. But see, I've only gone 3 stitches. Look how long it took me. So this is gonna take a while. Be patient with yourself. Once you get past this part, it does get easier. Okay, so I got all that done. Yay! And now we're about to land on the other side. And what you want to do is go right into that last waistcoat stitch that you did and do another waistcoat stitch to anchor it down. And then you're going to just continue to do the waistcoat stitches all the way around. Do the same thing when you get up here. You're going to single crochet into this and then waistcoat stitch until you get to the end and then join it. Okay guys, so here we are in the corner again. I did the join right there with the slip stitch, and so now all we have to do is you're going to do 2 more rows, and both of them are going to be waistcoat stitches all the way around. So just follow it around twice. What we're essentially doing is we're building up this, basically these are the armpits. So you're building up the arm sections on the outside. We're going to come in and do the front and the back separately. Okay guys, I was wrong. I said that you needed to connect here and then do 2 more rows, but you really only need to do 1 more row. I've got these 2 straps are halfway there. So that's about half the size they're going to be. Now we're going to turn it to the front and the back, and we are going to go build up along this part and the back part. What you're going to do, just like you did before, is we're going to start in the corner, and we're going to, you've already done the single crochet all the way around, so we don't have to do that part. We're going to go right into doing the waistcoat stitch. So right here is the beginning of the chain. And remember that on the, when you did the chain, there's a loop that we leave on the bottom. That's the loop that we're going to go into. So just pick up that 1 piece of yarn right there, go into that and do a regular single crochet all the way across the strap. Okay, so I have finished the strap part for that row, and see how it's building it up there, and you can't even really tell where the center of it is, but it looks really cool, I think. Then when you come back into it, you're going to go right back into your waistcoat stitch all the way to here where we started. You're going to join that with a slip stitch right there, and then chain up 1, do the same thing again, only this time go around and do waistcoat stitch all the way around, and then join it right here again, and then go ahead and finish that with a chain, and then weave in your ends, and then you're gonna do the same thing on the other side, and then you'll be done. Yay! Here we go. There is the sunflower pattern. I just love these colors. I love how this strap is nice and sturdy, part of the construction of the actual bag, not just connected, so it won't come apart on you. This is like the perfect length for me. When I first did the strap, it was like down here. So for me, being a shorter person, this is the perfect length for me. And this was so fun. So the question is, how are you going to make yours look? Is it going to have flowers? Is it going to have stars or hearts or anything you want in there? Are you going to make these colorful? Are you going to make the straps colored? You can do whatever you want with this bag. I just love it. So this is way cuter on my daughter. I just love this. She's such a daisy person. These are her colors. So you probably saw the picture at the beginning. My daughter was wearing the bag. Tell me how you're going to do yours. I would love to see, maybe put in the comments what you're going to do differently on your bag to make it your own. Or you can join us on my Facebook group if you want. The group is called Ginell's Quarantine Crochet. You're welcome to join us, and you can post pictures there. I'm actually going to start an album soon of everybody's completed works. So thanks for sticking with me during this journey. It was kind of a long one. See you next time.